Good morning, students. Today we will discuss about the term sequence of tenses. So, firstly, let me get you aware about the term sequence of tenses. It is the principle in accordance with which the tense of the verb in the subordinate clause follows the tense of the verb in the principal clause is known as the sequence of tenses. Means the way in which tense of the verb of subordinate clause follows the tense of the verb of the principal clause is known as sequence of tenses. Now there are two main rules for forming any sentence according to sequence of tenses. First rule is that in both the clauses there will be past tense. Like if there is a past tense in the present principal clause, it must be followed by a past tense in the subordinate clause. For example, I knew. I knew, here you can see knew is in past tense, again that he wanted to go. Wanted is also in past tense. That means in both the clauses we are using past tense. So I knew that he wanted to go. He succeeded because he worked hard. So you can see that both the clauses of one sentence contains past tense. So whenever there is a past tense in the principal clause, then you have to use past tense in the subordinate clause also. Let's move to the second rule. Second rule is that if there is present tense or there is future tense in the principal clause, then we can use any tense in the subordinate clause according to the required situation. Like, I think that the picture is beautiful. Here, think is in present tense, is beautiful also present tense. You know, present tense, that the story was not true, past tense. So you can see that I think that the picture is beautiful. Here, both the sent clauses have present tense, but you know that the story was not true. In this sentence, there is past tense in the subordinate clause. Same you can see in the future tense. He will think is common in all the three sentences, but in the first sentence, works it is present tense, worked it is past tense, and will work it is future tense. So you can see that whenever we are using present tense or future tense in the principal clause, that means we can use any tense in subordinate clause according to the situation. Now, there are three special rules besides these two main rules. So, the first one is you can call it exception. So, the first exception is a past tense in the principal clause may be followed by a present tense in the subordinate clause when the subordinate clause expresses some habitual or universal fact. That means if there is past tense in principal clause, then we will use present tense in the subordinate clause when we have to express any universal fact or any habitual action. That means whenever we have to express any universal fact or habitual action, then we have to use present tense in the subordinate ordinate clause while there will be past tense in the principal clause. Like, the teacher taught us that the earth is round. The term earth is round, it is a universal fact. So that's why here is is used and is denotes present tense, but the main clause, the principal clause, has the verb in past tense taught. Again, he learned from his experience that pride has a fall. Here you can see the principal clause contains learned past tense, but the subordinate clause contains has present tense as pride has a fall is a universal fact. So that's why you can conclude that whenever we will talk about any universal fact, any habitual action, and there is past tense in the principal clause, then we have to use present tense in the subordinate clause. Second exception is when the subordinate clause is introduced by some conjunction of comparison, example than, then rule 1 does not apply at all. Any tense can be followed by any tense. That means when there is a conjunction of comparison in the starting of subordinate clause means if the subordinate clause starts with conjunction of comparison, for example than, then we can apply any tense. We can apply any tense and rule 1 will not be followed. And we can apply any tense in any of the two clauses. For example, she likes you better than she liked me. Here you can see the subordinate clause starts with the word than. So we are using likes present tense in the principal clause but liked past tense in the subordinate clause. See the second sentence. She liked you better past tense than she likes me present tense. Again here you can see that the subordinate clause starts with than, then there is no rule, means rule 1 will be not followed. You can use any tense in any clause, whatever the situation be. Now we'll move to the last exception, that is conjunctions of purpose. Means when the subordinate clause is introduced by a conjunction of purpose, the following two rules must be observed. In the second exception, we read that when a subordinate clause starts with any conjunction of comparison, but here, if any subordinate clause starts with conjunction of purpose, then there are two rules. First rule is if the verb in the principal clause is in the present or future tense, the verb in the subordinate clause must be expressed by may present tense. That means if there is a sentence in which subordinate clause starts with the conjunction of purpose, then we have to see that what is in the principal clause, and if there is present or future tense in the principal clause, then subordinate clause will be expressed like by using may. Like you can see, he will work hard that he may succeed. See here, firstly there is a conjunction here that, and he will work hard. You can see that will work denotes future tense. That's why we used may in the subordinate clause. Again, he will be working hard that he may succeed. Again, here is that, and here will be working future. That's why we use may. In the present tense, again see that, here works present, may. So you can get that whenever the subordinate clause starts with that, then we have to use two rules. First rule is if the sentence has present tense or future tense in the principal clause, then we have to use may in subordinate clause. And you know that may is a modal, and modal always carries verb first form of verb with it. That's why we are using succeed. So that's all in this chapter. Thank you.